Hello everybody and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news, but it's also the preview for Brighton against Manchester United. I don't need to bore you with this is a must-win game. I don't need to say if we slip up, top four is gone. I think every single preview we're going to do over the next few weeks is going to be like that. So I'm not going to overemphasize that. It's a must-win game. I think every game has that added excitement to it. But what I am going to say about Brighton, and I do want to talk about Bellingham for Sancho and Sancho swap deals, Grealish, the budget that Manchester United have got, and really pick up on what James Cooper was talking about this afternoon. Fantastic interview if you've not watched it, Flex, with James Cooper from Sky Sports. Some real insight into what's going on at Manchester United. But let's start off with Brighton because that is the preview. This is the team. This is the team we have to pick. I've not really been that interested in what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's team has been for Southampton and Norwich and Sheffield United. I've sort of been, look, it's great to have United back. But I think we're bedded in now. I think we've played 3 games, and now you go with your strongest team in a game against a side like Brighton that are actually doing very, very well. That's the team to pick. There's no ifs, buts or maybes. It's Matic, it's Pogba, it's Bruno. It's the front 3 of Greenwood, Rashford, Martial, and it's that back 4 at the moment with De Gea in goal. Look, we do need pace in the centre-back positions, but as I said, I think he will use Maguire and Lindelof for the rest of the season, and I think they will be enough to get us top 4. I don't think they'll win us a title. I know we can't do that this year. So that is the team we should go with. That's the team he should be using every single week that he can between now and the end of the season, unless somebody has a bad performance and somebody comes in and grabs that opportunity. That's what we need to do, and that team will beat Brighton. And this is what I want to say about Brighton. I've actually watched Brighton more in the last 2 weeks than I'd watched them previously. I'd only seen them play twice, 3 times maybe. So I've seen it the same actually. But Brighton have taken 3 points against Arsenal. I'm not going to play the clip, but you know what happened. And they took a deserved point against Leicester. They missed a penalty and they should have won that game. So they're not a pushover. They're probably... We've got to win all our games against Brighton, but this is one of the games that actually is quite a difficult one. They are a side... Look, Potter has got them. You may as well call him Harry Potter. It's miraculous what he's done with a team that doesn't really have any star players in it. They should have relegation printed as their sponsor against their shirts. But, I'm mocking them there, but I respect the fact that they aren't going to go down. I wanted them to go down over lockdown. I was predicting them to go down. But having watched them play the last 2 games, I think, fair play for beating Arsenal and fair play, thank you, for taking points off Leicester. I think they've done fantastically well. But there's a way to beat Brighton. Potter has done a really good job, as I said. They've got 3 really good players that I rate. Some people might like different. I mean, Trossard's good, but he doesn't always start. For me, across the team, I really like their right back, Lamptey. I think I don't know how old he is. I don't know a lot about him, but fantastic. I think he's been really impressive for what I've seen. I think that battle against Rashford is going to be really good with him at right back. Moy in the midfield, obviously formerly of Huddersfield, very, very good player. Australian, I know, but nothing wrong with being Australian. But, he's probably Australia's best player, isn't he? I don't know. But formerly of Huddersfield, he was impressive there, and he's basically doing the same job at Brighton. Tenacious, good on the ball, very, very good player. And then obviously Morpay at the moment is going through a bit of I know he did miss a penalty, but he's a pain in the backside, Morpay. He will keep working. And he is a player that I think has got more in him. He could end up playing for an Everton or something like that. So he's a dangerous player as well. But ultimately, what do Brighton do and what problems do they cause for Manchester United? We should win this game. My prediction is that United are going to win 2-0. I don't know about you. And I think I'm going to tell you how I would win it. Having watched Brighton play and also done a little bit of research on Brighton as well. They're a very adaptive side. Potter is a very good manager. He'll probably never get a big job because he's done miracles at Brighton, some people say, well, Eddie Howe's done fantastic at Bournemouth, but I think Potter, I'll keep calling him Potter, I think he's done an amazing job at Brighton with very limited funds, and he's probably done a better job in the short time he's been there. I don't actually think he should have got the job. I thought Chris Hughton was very unlucky to get the sack at the time that he did, but Potter's come in and he's done a good job there. I don't know whether did he come in straight after Hughton or did they get someone else and then he was shit and then they brought Potter in. I can't remember. I don't follow Brighton that much, but what they do is they're a very adaptive team. They do change their formation a lot. And, whether it's a 4-4-2 or a 4-4-1-1 or 4-2-2-2 or 4-2-3-1, whatever it is, what Brighton do is they like to press. They like to press high up the pitch. and they like to harry teams, and they like to get hold of the ball, and they're good on the ball, and they're a good footballing team. If you remember back in the autumn, they came to play us at Old Trafford, and a lot of people predicted they were going to win because we were struggling, and we blew them away. We could have beat them. I think we could have won that game 7-0, and then I think we went and lost the following week to somebody like Bournemouth or something like that. So we have beaten this Brighton side before, and that is the lesson here. The way to beat Brighton is Paul Pogba. Paul Pogba's going to be very important, and Matic. They will press, and this is why I like Pogba. And I know Adam last night says, oh, I'd like to see Bruno swapping with Pogba. The reason I love Pogba from the deep, and the reason I like Bruno from the shallow, don't be rude, is because Bruno for me is an intricate passer. The little flick, that little flick that he did to get Ighalo in the red card against Norwich. I think Bruno can just do something over 5 yards, a little flick, a little pass. I think Pogba can do something very special, unlike many other people in world football, over 40, 50 yards. And against Brighton, they're going to press. You want to get Paul Pogba around the centre circle in your own half with Brighton pressing, and he dinks it over the top, and you get at their back four with our front three. That's how we'll beat Brighton. And I think we could end up beating Brighton 3 or 4-0. I'm going to be respectful of the fact that they're doing well at the moment and say 2-0. I don't think we'll concede against them. And I do think we'll score against them. And hence, I'm a happy person because we've got 3 points. But Brighton will press. Brighton will press. They will be energetic. They will be combative. And if we give them an opportunity, they will be a threat to our 3 points. What we need to do is utilise our front three, be mobile, be fast, be creative. And Paul Pogba and Matic have got to get that ball over the press ASAP. Whether you pass through it or over it, you know, you've got to mix it up. But that's how we'll beat Brighton. And most important of all, we can't feel our way into the game. Brighton start fast. They started fast against Arsenal. They started fast against Leicester. They missed the penalty against Leicester in the first half. They harried them. They are physical. And we've got to be on it from minute 1. Because if we give them an inch, they will take a yard. They will take a point. They might take all 3. So United have got to be on their game from the start. And Paul Pogba from the deeper areas, and Matic as well, have got to be very good at moving the ball quickly. Don't get caught in possession. I actually think, and he won't play anyway, but I actually think a game like this would be a bad game for a Fred or McTominay, who do tend to get caught in possession a little bit at the moment, especially since after lockdown. Matic is in form, Pogba's in form. I mean, look, that's a logical team. I'll be very disappointed if he doesn't go with that team. But it's very important that if you bypass the Brighton press, you can get at their back four. And as many of you will know, I think is it Byrne who plays at left back. He's basically a centre back playing at left back. If we can get Greenwood up against him, if Martial and Greenwood can swap and Rashford can swap, you can really exploit the fact that he is a centre back at right back. And again, I don't think they've got. I mean, look, Dunk's a very good centre back for them. I don't think. You know, I'm not going to be disrespectful of them, but I think that's how we get it. And as Philip Burton once says, getting the first goal will be so important. Your thoughts, Mark? Yeah, I think we've got it. I think if we get the first goal, we're up and running. As simple as that. And I do think we'll win. I do think we'll win. And I think we're going to keep winning. Do you think Angel Gomes is going to start, says Chunk? We'll talk about that in a moment. Could be a last throw of the dice to get him. And Mark, Mr. Patreon on Twitter, is refusing to have said that Gomes signed a deal. Thoughts, says Shubham Verma. Look, I was very angry this morning about the Angel Gomes thing. I've moved on from it. There are a few people who've been letting information out for a few weeks now that, you know, big news on Gomes. He's going to sign a new contract. He has signed a new contract. And they're all backtracking now. That happens on transfers. Look, I'm not going to bear grudges or anything like that. I nearly said Bear Grylls then. I'm not. Look, I was angry this morning. It was new news, and I've had time to think about it, and I do want to talk about Gomes in a minute. But ultimately, it's always very... Look, I can say to you right now, and this is made up, so don't start sharing it. I'll make this up right now, and I'll show you how this works, okay? Which player shall I pick? Jack Grealish, right? Jack Grealish wants to come to Manchester United. Manchester United have spoken to Grealish's agent. They've agreed terms, and the deal is going to happen. It's definitely going to happen, right? There you go. So we've spoken to Grealish's agent. He wants to come to us, and the deal's going to happen, right? That's a totally made-up story, right? When that happens, I go, remember the show on the 29th of June? I told you, insider information. I told you, and everyone goes, ooh, Goldbridge, he knows what he's on about. See how it works? When it doesn't happen, well, what I was told was right, but right at the minute, United pulled the plug on the deal. Last minute. So this is how in the nose kid you and con you. They do this by saying this is going to happen, and then I remember last summer there was a few going, De Ligt's definitely coming to United, and then they were, oh no, he was definitely going to come, and then at the last minute Juventus came in with a better offer. You can always twist it, which is why when I tell you stuff, I tell it from the people I trust, and that's why I don't do it every week. That's why I'll say, I spoke to my person like I did a couple of times in lockdown, and I'll tell you what they've told me, and that'll be the situation. And that's why I said on Angel Gomes, throughout the story with Angel Gomes, when people asked, I said, I know the situation with Angel Gomes, and it's this. He hasn't signed a contract. There's an inclination that he will, but he's not agreed it. So I don't know why people are saying, oh, he's going to sign it, this, that, and the other, because he hasn't been given the terms that he wants. So he's not signed it. And as of right now, he hasn't signed it. And I do feel sorry for people who get manipulated or believe this crap. Because it's not, for me, it's not worth the followers, it's not worth the subscribers, it's just not. I'd rather be getting information right. And if you remember Alexis Sanchez all those years ago, we were first with that by a week. And where we got it from was Robbie at AFTV, who got told something by a very good person that it was going to happen, and it was out of the blue. And we were like, look, I remember saying to Robbie, don't bloody be conning me on this, because if I go public on it, it's going to look a bloody idiot. He said, no, I don't even want it to happen, but it's going to happen. And it did happen. Bruno last summer, we were 100% in for Bruno. People keep saying, oh, you were wrong about Bruno. I wasn't wrong about Bruno. 100% we were in for Bruno last year. We pulled out because we didn't want to pay the money. At the end, we pulled out because we didn't want to pay the money. Why would we not be in for Bruno in June, in the summer, then go in for him 3 months later? The groundwork was already done. We just retracted because we didn't want to pay the money. Why did we buy him in January? Because we had been interested in him in the summer. We've been scouting him for years, as is public knowledge now, and we were desperate. Pogba and McTominay got injured. Haaland turned us down. The club needed to buy somebody, and at that point they needed a midfielder, so they went back in for Bruno. And that's what happened. Bruno wasn't plucked out of the hat in December. We were in for him. We were in for bloody Meunier as well, and then they got Wan-Bissaka, which they didn't expect to happen, and they wanted Wan-Bissaka. That was the right deal at the right time. And we wanted Sancho last summer, but we backed off very quickly when we realised we couldn't get him. Adams, Ollie deserves the lion's share of the blame for Gomes leaving, and to all the fans who say he's unproven, yeah, you're right, because our so-called man of the people manager preferred Lingard and Pereira over him, says Adams. And Lee Taylor, Brighton are one of the bogey teams like Bolton, used to be where they got freak results against the top teams. I hope Lingard and Mata are not on the bench. Well, Dwight York's been talking about Lingard. We'll talk about the topical stuff. We'll talk about Gomes. We'll talk about some transfer stuff in a minute. But let me just stick with Brighton and give them the respect they deserve. So that's how I would line up. Tactically, I've told you what I would do. We've got to move the ball quickly from Matic and Pogba to our front three and exploit the space, because Brighton will press. If you bypass the press, our front three against their back four, we should get goals. I don't think Brighton will be a team that sits on the edge of their box. I'll be very surprised if they did that. They'll do that if we progress up the pitch slowly, but if we progress up the pitch quickly, we'll get at their back four, and that's how we need to do it. Brighton have become a bit of a problem for us. We lost there. Did we lose there with Mourinho? We definitely lost there with... how many have we lost to Brighton twice? I forget. I think we've lost to Brighton twice, haven't we? In the last couple of years. But we've definitely lost to them with Mourinho. I remember that one. Love the game we're giving Greenwood. Well, Greenwood's got to be in the team, Daniel Luciano. He has got to be in the team, 100%. Smash a like on the video if you're watching. We're nearly at 1,000 likes. So yeah, I respect Brighton. I don't think it's our hardest game we've got left. I think we've got, teams like Crystal Palace will be tough. I think Southampton will be tough. I think every game's going to be tough because in its own way, everyone's going to be having a go at us, which is why I think if you pick that team, every game becomes a lot easier because that's the right team to play. My concern over the next few weeks is basically injuries. Somebody in the live comments quite right to say, and welcome to PS Zabs, latest member of the United Stand Members Club. Thanks for joining and supporting the channel, mate. Somebody in the comments just said, well, what about the fatigue of the players? They're going to play Tuesday. Do you want them to play against Bournemouth? Do you rest players? No, you don't. We don't. We absolutely don't. We don't think Bruno played 120 minutes, so let's not start him against Brighton. We don't play him against Brighton and then say, let's give him a rest against Bournemouth. We've got to win every game, and goal difference could be very important. I'm afraid in the Premier League, we are going to have to pick our best 11 every single game. We can't rotate, because if we rotate, we make the mistakes that we did against Norwich. Even at the moment, you can't even trust McTominay to start. He's not playing well. Can you trust Fred? I don't know. I think that's our best 11 on my left, and everybody else who's been given a chance so far hasn't really stepped up to the plate. So it's not the time to start resting players. We need to win games. Imagine if you rest Bruno tomorrow and then you don't win for whatever reason. Well, it's gone. Top four's gone. And I would say that we've got to win and keep winning until we're in the top four. And then you might have an opportunity to draw a game. But at the moment, we're playing catch-up and you cannot drop points. Welcome to Vincent McDonald, latest member of the United Stand Members Club. So yeah, I'm going to go with a 2-0 win for Manchester United. I have a feeling it could be more than that, but ultimately I'd be happy with that. I just want Manchester United to win tomorrow. I don't think we'll concede, and I think we'll definitely score, which will get us the 3 points that we need. And then Wednesday night becomes a massive night because Chelsea are at West Ham and Leicester are at Everton, and there could be opportunities there. But it's great. I think it's good that we're playing first because it puts that added pressure onto those teams. They can get rests once we've got a solid lead, says Daniel Luciano. Exactly. Play them for an hour, take them off. Exactly, that's what I would do. Martial hat-trick again, says McNally. Look, you've pulled me into something here that I don't really want to say publicly, but I said at the start of the season that I think Martial can outscore Aubameyang, and I got rinsed for it. Absolutely. Arsenal fans, for the last 9 months, they've been retweeting it and mentioning it. And I still stand by it. And Aubameyang has played more games than Martial. So I do think, and I really hope it happens because it'd be hilarious. And I'm not disrespecting Aubameyang. He's a very good striker. It's a very poor club. But I would love it if Martial outscores Aubameyang. And I think he's got an opportunity if he stays fit. Martial worries me. I think he and Rashford are two players that I worry about their fitness levels. They need to stay fit for the last few weeks of the season. But if he does stay fit, I think there's goals for him in that team. And I think he could be picking up a goal a game between now and the end of the season, which would take him over 20 goals for the Premier League. I see fans moaning about Gomes leaving, but yet in the same breath want us to sign Grealish or Van der Beek. Both them players push Gomes further down, says Sean Turner. Well, let's talk about Gomes very quickly, and then we can move on to the more topical stuff of the transfers and what James Cooper said this afternoon and what my interpretation of that is. So when the Gomes news came out today, it came out in the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer press conference, which I react to straight away. For me, it's the same as my match reaction. I will be emotional and passionate because I've just heard the news or I've just seen the game. So I heard Ollie say he's basically going to leave. I wasn't expecting that. I knew it was a danger. I knew he hadn't signed a new contract, but I felt because he'd been training with the team and looking happy, and he has been training with the team again today, I thought he would sign a new contract. So to hear Ollie basically say he's going, and I still hope that he might stay, but to hear Ollie say he's going, I was annoyed. I was annoyed because I'm annoyed at the deals that United haven't done. And look, I've had people today taking a pop at me. I'm not bothered, whatever. If you don't understand that it's my opinion and I don't speak for anybody else other than myself, then that's your problem. Well done, you've got your own opinion at the end of the day. But I've had people saying, oh, well, losing Gomes, so what, he's shit. Losing out on Bellingham because he wants more game time at Dortmund that we can't give him. Losing out on Haaland because he wanted a release clause that we wouldn't get him. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Hello, welcome to the world. You've expressed a different opinion to me. I'd like you to remove some of the abuse, but you've expressed a different opinion to me. I'm still saying the same thing. We didn't get Haaland when Ollie wanted him. I don't care about the release clause. If United decide they don't want a release clause, I'll guarantee you Ollie doesn't give a shit. Ollie wanted Haaland, so you didn't get him. Fine. You still didn't get him. I don't care whether there's an excuse. You didn't get him. Ollie wanted Bellingham. All right. Dortmund are saying they're going to give him more game time. I disagree with that, but so what? You still didn't get him, and Ollie wanted him. Gomes, all right, you think he's shit. He's 5'4", he's small, he's rubbish. I tell you what, Maradona was 5'5", so, and he's one of the world's best ever players. And I'm not saying Gomes is Maradona, but what I'm saying is height is irrelevant. You can still be a great player at 5'4". So I disagree with that, but all right, you think Gomes is shit. Ollie still wanted him to stay. That's my point. I'm not saying there's not reasons why they're not staying. The reason Gomes isn't staying because we won't give him the money he wants. The reason Bellingham's not coming, maybe he thinks he's going to get more development at Dortmund. The reason Haaland's not coming, maybe because of the release clause. Fine. But Ollie wanted Haaland. Ollie wanted Bellingham. Ollie wants Gomes to stay. The club haven't delivered it. That's what annoyed me. There is always going to be an excuse. People will always make an excuse. But I was frustrated because United are not giving our manager what they want. I don't really care if somebody on Twitter disagrees with my opinion and wants to try and ridicule me. I've had that for 5 years. My point still stands, and in my mind, it's still correct. I was frustrated this morning because our manager is not getting what he wants. These people who go against me and say, oh, you're wrong, there's an excuse, but you're basically backing the Glazers because Ollie wanted Bellingham, he wants Gomes to stay, and he wanted Haaland. That's what Ollie wants. I'll back what Ollie wants. Everyone else who says I'm wrong, and there's reasons for it. You're backing the Glazers. Carry on. That's what you're doing. Because Ollie wanted those 3 things, excuses or not, and he didn't get them. And that's why I was frustrated this morning. However, having had time to calm down, and I must just read these super chats. Welcome to Chotspot United, latest member of the United Stand Members Club. Ollie didn't have an agenda against Gomes. There have been occasions we've been crying out for certain players, but they just haven't performed when given a chance. Chong, Bailly, Delo, and of course Gomes, says Joe and Daniel. I don't feel that Gomes has been given a chance, mate. I really don't. I disagree with you on there. I do not think Gomes has been given a chance, and he's certainly not been given the chances that Lingard and Pereira and Mata have. Leicester's running is very tough for them. As long as we handle our business, they will drop out the top 4, says Dwayne West. Yes, welcome to the club. I said that in lockdown. You're right. Cobros Aitkins, United have always offered biggest contracts, always, so not money. Players join for the manager's project and draw. Ibra joins purely for Jose. Matic the same. Mane said he signed for Klopp. Issue isn't Ed. Interesting. Woodward fan there. Mark, same like you. I'm furious. Wish Gomes changes his mind. Than any news on James. What would you like to be done tactically if we're drawing with 30 minutes to go, says Matthew. And what sort of excuse is he's too small for Gomes, says Matthew Nemeth. It's out there, mate. Martial top in the league next season, the team we want, says Johnny Goodwin. I think that if we're drawing with 30 minutes to go tomorrow, you've got to go for the win. So I would be looking at. Well, I mean, look, what have we got on the bench if we're losing tomorrow or we need a win? I mean, our best players are on the pitch where they need to be. So you're going to be reliant on Lingard or Mata or Pereira or Dan James. And this is the problem. This is why I think people like Grealish and a striker are very important. Because if that's your best 11, who's coming on to make us better? There isn't anybody. There actually isn't anybody I trust on the bench in an attacking side. This is why, well, Agarlo, you chuck Agarlo on. I've got nothing wrong with Agarlo, but you know, in relation to creativity, if that team doesn't work, who's coming on to make things happen? And that's why I think we do need a Grealish. I think that's really important. Still worried about Leicester's goal difference, as Daniel Luciano, which is exactly why we need to win more games. But on the Gomes situation, I would say this. If he goes, and I do wish him all the best. And the rumour is that he's going to go to Chelsea because they've offered a better deal. And why wouldn't he go to Chelsea? Like, why wouldn't he? You know, when you look at it, why wouldn't he go to Chelsea? It's disappointing, but why wouldn't he? They're an English club in the Premier League, which is where Angel Gomes is now. They're going to give him more money than what Manchester United are going to offer him. So again, that's another tick in the box. And also, they want him, and they're probably going to tell him, this is the plan. And at United might be saying, well, this is the plan, but he can look at it and go, wasn't that the plan last year? And I've hardly had any game time. So you can understand why Angel Gomes is going to go to Chelsea if they're going to give him more money and promises. United have probably broken those promises. So I can, now I've had time to calm down. I can see why he would turn us down. And it might not be to do with negotiations. It might just be to do with, the proof's in the pudding. He hasn't been given the opportunities this year. Why should he trust he's going to get them next year when a new club are saying that they will do and they'll give him more money for it? So, look, now that I've calmed down, I can see that side of things. Do I think he's going to be a world beater? Actually, probably not. That'll get clipped up in 3 years. I know it will. But look, so what? That's happened before. I don't think he's going to be a world beater. No, I don't. But I would have liked to have seen him be given the opportunity to be one at United. Jay Dale says, if Matic is injured or rested, do you feel we will need to sacrifice either Bruno or Pogba? Can Fred McTominay play that defensive role? I think Pogba would just need to play deeper with a McTominay or Fred. I don't think we need to move one of them out. What's wrong with Dan James, by the way? Is he injured, ill, or is Ollie just not playing him? I don't know, Ewan. I don't know. Thanks for the super chat. I don't know. Apparently he was at the game the other night, but I don't know. Govind says, if we only have money to buy 2 players, won't it be shrewd to get Herrera for 10 to 15 million as PSG are looking to offload him to get Milinkovic? He will add squad depth, improve the quality, and moreover knows the United way. I'd have him back, but I don't think United want to go back on that sort of deal. And he'd be very expensive wages-wise as well. So it won't happen. Sancho, Rashford and Martial has the potential to be better than Rooney, Ronaldo and Tevez. And Muzzy Lines, you know what? The word potential is right there. They do. But look, I just want to talk about what Dwight York has said about Jesse Lingard. He's basically said that, he should be looking at a transfer now. Maybe that's what he should be looking at. And look, we've been saying that for a while. A lot of people have said, why have you not been talking about Lingard that much? Because I just feel that there's not a lot more to add to it. I mean, and you got to be very careful, because I've been a critic of Lingard for quite a while now, and I have nothing new to add. And that's why I try to include Pereira and Mata, so it's not just all about Lingard. I don't think any of those three are good enough for Manchester United, and I think that they all need to go this summer. I don't think even they could all be here next year. Wouldn't surprise me, but I think they all should go if we're looking to step forward. I don't trust any of them. But Lingard, for me, it's not even about... Oh, I feel sorry for him. I actually do feel sorry for him, and I'm sure he doesn't want anybody's pity, but I do feel sorry for him, because I actually think there's a better player than what we see. And when I watched him against Norwich, I've coached, I've played, I've been in that situation myself. I remember I've been in games before where I'm carrying an injury, or I'm having a bad game, and you run away from the ball and you run near another player so that they won't pass you the ball. And then when you get the ball, you'll just play a simple 5-yard pass because you don't want to try anything ridiculous in case it goes wrong and then you get criticised. And watching Lingard against Norwich, that was the performance. His runs, he was always running where there was another Norwich player so that he couldn't get the ball. And then when he did get the ball, he just played a simple 5-yard pass that anybody could play. He's got no confidence, and I don't think he's had any confidence for a long time. And I think his ability has just disappeared. And I think he needs to go somewhere where the pressure's not there, and he's still got time to turn his career around. So hopefully the Mino Raiola thing is about that. And I think there is a better player in Lingard. But ultimately, I think even Lingard at his best would only ever be a bench player for us. And I think he should be looking to play first team football somewhere. So I think that's what I agree with Dwight Yorke. I think he does need to go. And I think that he will be a good signing for somebody. But the United, I mean, look, Nicky Butt left at around that age. Phil Neville left around that age. There's, Kieran Richardson left. There's loads of players that have left and gone and had decent careers. And I think Lingard just needs to see that, look, I'm sure the dream for Lingard a couple of years ago when he was Messi Lingard was to be a United great and be part of something special. It just hasn't worked. And I think it's time to move on. And there's nothing wrong with that. Not every player that comes through United's youth system becomes a United great. If he has 20 games this year, deal would be done, says Sean from Ireland, for Angel Gomes. Yeah, I think it would. I think you're right on that. Nearly got 10,000 watching. Please share the video if you're watching and smash a like. Make sure you subscribe if you're new, because we're very close to 725,000. In fact, I'll check in a minute. If we want a challenge for league, we need a stronger bench. Our bench is full of deadwood, says Rudy. I agree with this. This is why I think Grealish is very important. So let's go through... watch the James Cooper interview on the channel from Sky Sports. Manchester United correspondent for Sky Sports. Very respected, very good links in with the club. He's known Ole Gunnar Solskjaer for years. Fantastic guy. Definitely not a clickbaiter. Definitely not a person who puts nonsense out there. Very pro Manchester United. Very pro Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. But also very realistic of the challenges and issues that we have. And he was speaking to Flex today. It's an hour and it just flies by. It's really good. You should watch it after this. But just picking up on some of the things he said... And I don't need to highlight these stuff. This is different to what I think. So in some ways, I'm undermining what I think. But obviously, it's opinion, a lot of what I think. That's the whole point of thinking. So he said about the budget, realistically, he just doesn't see that United are going to spend 120 million on a player. Morally, does that work with what United have been doing over the last few months around the NHS and charity? Does it morally fit for a club to go and spend 100 million? Which is why... I think Dortmund are getting quite confident of keeping Sancho, because they feel that they've priced everybody out of the market, because they won't go less than 100 million, and who's going to spend 100 million in this market? But I think they're underestimating what Jadon Sancho's going to do there. I think Jadon Sancho will go knocking on that door and will want to be part of the United project if we get Champions League football. So there's time in that deal. But I do think that James is right, and I've said it, and a few of you have said it. I think United's transfer budget is going to be around 60 to 100 million pounds, and we're going to have to sell to build up the money to buy certain players. And how we're going to do that, we're going to have to get quite creative. Best alternative for Sancho, don't see Ed paying 100 million pounds, says Kizele. And Lingard would be perfect for a mid-table club like Arsenal. The thing is, Arsenal will go, we don't want him. Arsenal would go, we don't want him. We don't want Lingard. And they've said the same about Chris Smalling. And the reality is both players would probably make them better. They think they're better than they are. And that those two players are probably better than a lot of what they've got. And they've certainly got... they would. Before the Prem restarted, Ollie was upbeat on transfers and he's slowly starting to become more negative. Another disappointing summer ahead. No Sancho, says Sean Turner. And it's the anniversary of Daniel James Dan James's dad's death, rest in peace, as Wayne Collis. Well, it's not. It's not. I mean, I might be wrong about that, but it's not. And I'm more than happy to, mark that occasion for one of our players, but it's not, because we'd signed him by now, and unfortunately his dad passed away before we signed him. I think it was in May, so I don't think it is. I think you've got that wrong, but obviously it's a very difficult time for Dan, and I think this is one of the reasons why Dan James for me is a player to judge next season, because he's had a whirlwind 12 months, and I think at times he's looked really good, and at times he's looked really bad, and I think next season will be very, very important for him. But on the situation with transfers, I wouldn't be worrying about Sancho too much. As I've said, I said this, Fabrizio Romano said it, I was told it 2 weeks before that, and the video's there, and we've heard lots of developments since then. United are at the front of the queue for Jadon Sancho. United love Jadon Sancho. Sancho wants to come to the Premier League. Sancho wants to come to Manchester United. These things are all true. The stumbling block is going to be getting the deal done. But now is not the time to think that deal won't be done. So I'm not worried about the Sancho deal. And as James Cooper said, I don't agree with this, but what he said was that, with the Bellingham thing, there could be a sweetener in there that, United... And he said these things do happen. I'm not saying it is happening, but these things can happen like this. Dortmund get a free run at Bellingham, and then they get a young British player that they can develop, and then they let the one that they have developed go to Manchester United. And he said maybe there's something in that. Now, I personally don't think that happens, and I've been quite vocal about that, because ultimately for me, I think, well, how do you do that? What if Bellingham wants to go to Dortmund anyway? How are we sweetening the deal? Dortmund would be like, up yours, we're getting him anyway, and we'll keep Sancho. So I don't see that how that works, but look, if there's something in that, great. But what he also said, and what was quite interesting from what Romano said a few weeks ago, around the Sancho deal, he said he can see swap deals coming into play. Now, how does that work? I mean, I was very surprised when we had Romano on the show, Fabrizio Romano, and he mentioned swap deals, but we've already seen it with Juventus and Arta and Pjanic and Barcelona. That these swap deals are happening already. So swap deals with Dortmund. Look, Alexis Sanchez, please take Alexis Sanchez. I don't think they will. Angel Gomes is not going to be part of a swap deal because he's a freebie, isn't he? So he's gone. It's a shame, because I think Angel Gomes to Dortmund might have been an interesting move actually, but he will be going to somebody for free, so we can't do that. So I don't really know what we could offer Dortmund. I mean, I'd love them to take it to Heath Chong and actually play him. I think that would be a fantastic move. Maybe they'd be interested in Lingard. I don't know, but look, I'm more than open for us to doing swap deals with Dortmund. I just don't know what we've got that we can give Dortmund. What about Leon Bailey? Says O'Shane 1. I mean, he's a good player, but I've been quite consistent about this. When people say Sancho alternatives, I think it's such a drop-off from Sancho to someone else that it disappoints. I mean, look, you could get Adama Traore, Ibrahim Sarr, and Leon Bailey. We could sign all three of them, and I'd still be disappointed that we didn't get Sancho. For me, I think we are trying our best, apparently, to, and we definitely want to, as fans, close the gap on Liverpool. To do that, you've got to get Sancho. You can't get Sarr or Traore or Zaha or Leon Bailey and go, yeah, we're closing the gap on Liverpool. We might do. They might be brilliant players. But if you sign Sancho, you are sending a message that this is one of the best young players in world football, and he now wears the number 7 shirt for United and plays on our wing. Look, of course he might take time to adjust, but you've just gone and got one of the best young players in Europe. That is a message to what we're trying to achieve. It's a symbolic signing as much as it is a great signing. So yeah, that's why it's important to me. And I think Sancho is symbolic on many different levels. One, it's a major signing to show that we mean business. 2, it's a massive endorsement of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. 3, it's a massive signing for the fans. And 4, it's a massive, massive statement from the club that they will spend this money and they can secure a signing like this. So yeah, I think it's massive on many levels, and hopefully they can do it. What's your thoughts on the Bellingham and what was said? Well, look, at least 3 or 4 more good players needed for titles, says Abanab, and I wouldn't disagree with that. I mean, look, I suppose I've had my final word on Gomes. My final word on Bellingham as things stand is that I think United desperately wanted to buy him. I think Ollie wanted him, and I think we highlighted a player there that was a very good signing. And I think ultimately he will end up playing in the Premier League, and he may well end up coming to Manchester United in a couple of years' time. He might. We might end up paying 70 million for him, but it would have been nicer to get him for 20 million now. And I do think he would have got game time at United. That's the disappointing thing. I think he would have got game time at United. And Dortmund, where are Dortmund offering him game time? They've got Dawood, they've got Witsel, they've got very good midfielders. So I actually think there's more of a gap at United. Like Matic had a bad year last year. He's doing well now and he's getting older. You could easily take his place next season and get half his games. McTominay and Fred, look, yeah, they're good, but you could be better than that. I think he could have come into United and done a good job. There's a lot of people out there saying, well, he's obviously going to Dortmund for game time. But if you know Dortmund and you know United, I don't really see how there's a guaranteed more game time at Dortmund than there is United. And so I think there's more to it. I don't know. Maybe it's money again. A lot of the time it is money. Do you think it would make more sense to use the 100 million budget to buy Partey and Traore, as they will improve us in two positions, as Vincent McDonald? I mean, I do see that, and thanks for the super chat. But for me, I would spend it on Sancho and not get a midfielder. I think he is, as I said, massively important to us this summer. Lingard and Rojo plus 60 million for Sancho. Can't think of any other players we would be willing to give them. If Ed fails this summer, he needs sacking, says Sean Turner. I don't think Rojo wants to stay in Europe, which is a problem. We really do have a habit of buying players badly, don't we? Alexis Sanchez, best paid player in the Premier League. Crap, can't get rid of him. Rojo, paid very good money, but doesn't want to play anywhere other than Argentina, who can't afford him, so we're stuck with him. Phil Jones is Phil Jones. Pereira, who's going to buy Pereira? Lingard, you can almost stay the same. And for every one of these players, we're adding tens of thousands of pounds a week that we pay them in wages. So we've got so many players. You know what? If somebody said to me, you can get rid of these players tomorrow, I would be going, right, Rojo goes, Jones goes, Lingard goes, Pereira goes, Mata goes. There's more. There's definitely more. Obviously, Smalling goes. Sanchez goes. That's 7. There's more. There's definitely more. But 7's a lot straight away anyway. And when you add all those wages up together, I bet it's about 1.5 million a week. And I would let those players go tomorrow. And I wouldn't even be worried. I'd be like, we can use a bit of the youth till we buy some players in. So, massive amount of money wasted at this club. It's crazy the way Leicester can line up their team with Ndidi, just him covering the back line with everyone being able to be more offensive, says Daniel Luciano. Yeah, but you know what? Leicester do play on the break a lot, so it's not like they do that, is it, really? But look, we started on Brighton, and I must just come back and say about Brighton, it's a huge game tomorrow. I'm very excited about it. Obviously, we'll have the watch-along on the channel as per, but yeah, we are... Look, I said it at the start, and I don't want to... Every single game now is a must-win game. So saying Brighton's a must-win game, well, you've got to say it for Bournemouth. Every game's a must-win game. So unless we get into the top 4 and we've got a bit of a gap on somebody like Leicester or Chelsea, every game's a must-win game. So that's the great excitement of the situation that we have going into July and at the end of June, is that every game's a must-win game. And look, I'll say it right now, if we draw tomorrow, we're out of the race for top 4 as far as I'm concerned, and we actually start getting pulled into a race for 6th, because what if Spurs win or bloody Arsenal win in there against their game? So I'm not looking down. I'm not interested in Spurs and Arsenal. You argue amongst yourselves. We're looking up. But we've got to win. We've got to win, because the fallout, if we don't win tomorrow, will be probably quite justified. Angry. There's no excuses not to win tomorrow. I think there's every reason to respect Brighton. Of course there is. But we've got to win tomorrow. There's no excuses not to win. If we draw that game and Brighton play well, I'm not going to sit there and go, wow, at the end of the day, it's a good result. It's not. Look at that 11. Look at Brighton's 11. We should win. If we don't win, then Potter has outdone Ollie, and the Brighton players have outdone Ollie, and they never should do that. So we've got to fight for it as much as them. We've got to bypass their press, and we've also got to be as intense against them as their press. Because if we let them get hold of the game, it will become harder and harder. Finally, then, we are on 724,000 subscribers, 900. We are 100 subscribers away from 725,000, which is quite a round number. So if you are watching and you are new, please subscribe, bottom right-hand corner, and we might just suddenly have a boost of 100 subscribers and do it. Mark, has there been any quotes from Sancho that you don't want to go to a club that is not in the Champions League, says Per Eric Klassen? No, and I always think that's a very, very weird thing. But ultimately, I do think he wants to play in the Champions League because it's symbolic again, isn't it? I think if we don't get Champions League football and Chelsea do, it's all part of the package, isn't it? Do you want to go to a club that's going to be fighting around in the Europa League and, you know, is probably on a downer? Or do you want to go to a club that's in the Champions League and is on the way up? There's an aura. There's an aura to being in the Europa League and the Champions League. And, people say, well, why does it matter? Because it does matter. It's a sign of the times. It's a sign of what you're doing. If you get in the Champions League, you're on your way back. You're on your way up. If you're in the Europa League, you're really in the Poundland European Trophy, aren't you? So I can see. I mean, Havertz is apparently the same. Some people would say, well, why does it matter? Because you might get knocked out in the group stage or the first round. But you're in it. It's a status thing. If you're in the Champions League, you're one of the best teams in Europe. If you're in the Europa League, you're not. And so it is a status thing for sure. Thanks for all the new subscribers there. We've not quite hit it, but thank you very much. Okay, so we'll be back in the morning at 10 a.m. with the transfer show. Flex and Rants at 1 o'clock, and then tomorrow night, the watch along. It's a 8:15 kickoff UK time, so it'll be around 7:15. We're live with the team news, but I'll tell you all that tomorrow. What's happened to Timothy Fosu-Mensah, says Lawrence? Well, he was on the bench in the Norwich game, so be interesting to see if he gets any time. Will it? Won't it? Will be interesting. But look, have a good evening. Thanks everyone for watching. Subscribe if you're new. And as I said before, to all those people who don't like my opinion, it's an opinion. It's not a voice for the fans. It's not a voice for anybody. It's an opinion. And anybody who says I'm wrong for being frustrated that we didn't keep Gomes and we didn't get Bellingham and we didn't get Haaland and there's good excuses for that, you're just back in the Glazers, because I stand with Ollie. Ollie wanted Haaland. Ollie wanted Bellingham, and Ollie wanted Gomes to stay. And the club didn't make it happen. And they might have excuses, but they didn't make it happen. You sit Ollie down, he'd say, yes, I want Bellingham, Haaland and Gomes to stay. He didn't get them. Do you think Ollie's a bank manager? Do you think Ollie was sat there going, oh, they want a release clause, we better not sign him? Do you think against with Bellingham he went, oh, you'll get more game time at Dortmund, you better go there? And do you think with Gomes he went, well, I want you to stay, but you'll get more money at Chelsea, you better go? No. He didn't. That's why I'm frustrated. But if you think something else, well done. Welcome to the world of opinion. Welcome to the United Stand. It's about fan opinion. I'll speak to you all soon. Excited about the game tomorrow. Yes, I am. I think we're going to win 2-0. And as I said, the key to that game is starting well, bypassing their press and exploiting their back four. Speak to you all soon.